Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
And here we are, Brad and John, final segment, as we call it in the Brad and John business. It's segment C, as in Charlie. Megan Green. You referenced this was the very first segment we talked about this. She essentially is, did you say she's an adjunct professor at Washington University?
Yeah, I believe she's an adjunct, correct.
And she's been essentially told she's no longer a professor? Wasn't that the deal, that she's essentially been fired or whatever you want to call it?
Let me see here. While I bring that up, I believe she has been, she was placed on leave following the protest, correct. So, but here's what's confusing. In the story, it says she's, quote, relieved of her job duties and prohibited from campus. But here's the kicker, Brad. It says she's still allowed to teach virtually. So if she's relieved of her job duties and prohibited from campus, I don't know how she's still allowed to teach virtually. That doesn't make any sense to me. So who knows?
Can you say they don't have enough guts to just essentially say, hey, Miss Green, or she's got a PhD, doesn't she? Isn't she like Dr. Green? Don't they call her Dr. Green?
I don't know. I mean, it's not a real doctor. It's like a Jill Biden doctor, I'm sure.
A Jill Biden doctor. I don't understand. Just like the thing you talked about this morning about the kid who got the notice on Sunday morning essentially saying, okay, guess what? Get out of your dorm by 8 o'clock. But can I still take my finals? No, you can't do it on campus, but you can do it virtually.
Yeah. What a punishment.
That's like, okay, if we catch you in computer fraud and we throw you in jail and we say, okay, we're going to put you in jail, but we're still going to give you the internet and you can still do computer fraud from your jail cell. Yeah, great.
It's like double secret probation. If you're Dean Wormer in Animal House, you put the guys on double secret probation. But for Megan Green, though, I mean, of course you want to get arrested. Of course you want to be the face of this because you don't want to run next year as a quote unquote moderate in the city. And the only way you're going to outflank a Tashara Jones is by standing in solidarity with pro-Palestinian protesters.
Well, the whole Doug, don't get me going on this. I mean, this thing's turned into, if you haven't seen the news so far yet this morning, there's now been a violent, and I mean violent, takeover of one of the academic buildings on the Columbia campus where they're breaking windows. And at one point in time, there were like 3 or 4 maintenance guys in the building, and one guy, I don't know if you've read this part of the story, the one guy essentially comes out of the building. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's the smartest guy in the world. He comes out of the building yelling, I've been taken hostage. I'm thinking to myself, now the guy can sell his story.
Yeah, what a story it is.
The next thing he's going to be on CNN, or no, he wouldn't be on CNN because they would endorse him being taken hostage. He'd be on Fox going like, yeah, well, I was doing my job, and I'm a blue-collar kind of guy, and all these rich kids came in, and they took me hostage at Columbia University.
Yeah, and he could make the circuits on right-wing TV. I think that the broader question, Brad, is that we had, okay, so if you look at 2020, and you look at the Saint George Floyd protests, the phrase that came out of that was a reckoning. We have to have a racial reckoning in the United States. And universities made a big deal of victimhood and more entitlement training and a lot of DEI stuff. And whether you're government or your institutions, coming out of this, is there any kind of a middle ground of, or I guess, is there a lowest common denominator of idea of a quote unquote reckoning after this? Because you have to give these protesters something. You have to give the Megan Greens of the world and whatever, junior varsity politicians are out there trying to follow in her shadow. You have to give them something so that they have a win. And do you say, we've created a community committee on Palestinian studies, and we're going to fund it with this much money because we hear you. We hear you, and there's a reckoning about Palestine and Gaza. So if you're WashU, what do you give up, Brad?
You give up the Starbucks on campus? I don't know.
Yeah, and you make it some kind of a hippie commune. But you get what I'm saying. Like, you have to give them something so that they can claim a win. Because you don't have the spine, Brad. You're not Mineral Area College, and you can't say, get the hell out of here. You guys get nothing, and we're going to beat you in the head with a nightstick if you come back here.
Well, see, to a certain extent, this is sort of, and I don't want to make this sound like I went to SIU Edwardsville and I went to Lindenwood and I didn't go to any prestigious universities or stuff like that. Like John did, he went to Washington University, but we won't hold it against him. But the point being that you look at government, and even to the point where you look at the Supreme Court, you don't see, I don't think there's ever been a Supreme Court justice from the University of Missouri at KC or Columbia Law School. I don't think there's ever been a justice from SIU Carbondale's law school. Okay, they all come from Harvard or Cambridge or Yale or places like that.
Sure.
And to a certain extent, don't you think that sort of gives you that inbreeding effect, that you've got all these Ivy League eggheads who are essentially running the country? Now, I have a theory on that.
Which is what?
Well, the theory is it's all about networking. It's all about networking. Oh,
yeah, for sure. And I'm not interrupting, Brett, because I want you to finish that point. But you're also making the fundamental idea of white privilege, of the quote-unquote networking only advances the elites. But finish that point because it's important.
Well, but it's not necessarily just the elites. It's like in everything. For example, look at the situation with, and you talked about the white elites. Let's take Oprah Winfrey. Her friend Gayle King. Do you think Gayle King would be where she's at right now on a national television network doing what she's doing if she wasn't Oprah's friend? Of
course not.
I mean, and once again, look at all the quote-unquote Oprah's friends. We got Dr. Oz, who's a white dude. We got Dr. Phil, who's a white dude. But still, they're Oprah's buddies. And to a certain extent, people are going to go, well, yeah, but she started them with their own shows and blah, blah. I get it. But, I'm not on a national show because I don't know Oprah. Never met her before,
Right.
I mean, but the situation for me is that why is it that if you get and like, for example, I know here in the St. Louis, because I know a little bit more about this than I should know because I'm sort of into the law, sometimes evading the law, but that's a whole other story. No, seriously. There are law firms in St. Louis that will not hire SLU graduates. They'll hire WashU graduates, but they won't hire SLU graduates because they say, well, St. Louis University Law School is a lower class student than the Washington University Law School. And I'm going like, now, hold on a minute now. I mean, see, once again, the thing that's fascinating to me is that you go back and you trace the history of somebody like Elon Musk, okay? At one point in time, the guy was working on a farm, okay? How many, and I'm not making that up. You read his biography, it's pretty interesting. How many people who are graduated from Washington University who went to the law school, how many people do you think have ever held a shovel in their hands? Okay?
None. Yeah, none.
Right, none or
with the exception of your daughter, who's held the shovel in her hands at some point, probably in the Hildebrand backyard.
Mainly because of the fact that I said, here, hold my, here, hold my beer. No, I said, here, hold my shovel. The idea being is that, I'm a firm believer that you have to a certain extent, no matter what you do, you have to immerse yourself in the business of what you're in. For example, I know people that work at Boeing right now who complain that what's happened to Boeing is that the management, the leadership at Boeing is no longer the engineers, the guys who are the double E and the mechanical engineers, the aerospace engineers, all those kind of guys. It's the egghead financial dudes. And to a large degree, that's what's happened in the radio business. The people running the radio business, for the most part, with the exception of Bob Pittman, because he did work his way up as a radio guy, but with the exception of Bob Pittman, it's guys and gals. Mary Byrne, I think her name's Mary Byrne or Mary Berner, who is the CEO of Cumulus, which is another one of the big broadcasters. She's never worked a day in her life in a radio station. Now, I'm not saying that if you're going to run a company, that if you're going to run General Motors, that you had to work as a mechanic at a Chevy dealership. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that if you don't know how the pieces of the puzzle fit together, you can't be a good manager. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. And Brad, I have to put on my weekly Monsanto rose-colored glasses. Our CEO for a long time, a gentleman named Hugh Grant, not to be confused with the man who was a fan of Divine Brown, a Los Angeles streetwalker, but CEO Hugh Grant got his start at Monsanto by selling Roundup. He literally sold Roundup, and it wasn't a stunt. He wasn't the son of a rich guy who wanted to do an internship and sold Roundup. Like, he literally sold Roundup to farmers. The guy that ended up running the North American business at the time of the Bayer acquisition was a gentleman named Brett Begemann, who's from Northwest Missouri. I believe he's from Chillicothe. And he actually sold corn and soybean seed for years as a field guy and worked his way up the chain. And suddenly he's running North American and then eventually global business for Monsanto. Those guys could talk to you, Brad. And here's what you would appreciate. Hugh Grant could talk to you about the rate of Roundup you should spray over a field of wheat if you're going for burn down pre-plant. Like, these are guys that understand what the folks in the field deal with every day. And that's the difference between having somebody that comes from an MBA management background at a either East Coast elite school or coming from, a European school, guys that have actually done the job before. And I would make the argument, Brad, that it takes both types. Like, you can't just have a guy that's used to working on planes have every management job in the company, but you have to have some kind of diversity of experience there.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. But once again, the situation for me is I think you have to understand the core business if you're going to run it successfully.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think that you see this so many times where, like, for example, the situation that you now see with Southwest Airlines, okay? I was a huge fan of Southwest Airlines in the Herb Kelleher days. There's a fantastic book, which I think you can still get. I think it's still on Amazon. It's called Nuts. And essentially, it's a very fascinating book about the start of Southwest Airlines and all this other kind of stuff. And it's to the point where Herb, and this was one thing that I always had tremendous appreciation. You know what he did like on holidays? You know what he did like on Thanksgiving Day?
Idea.
He would show up at the airport, pick an airport, and he would help the baggage handlers load baggage on a plane. Okay? This is the CEO of the company. And he became a beloved CEO because all the employees knew that there was never a chance that he would be sitting in his executive office, with a brandy snifter, smoking a cigar. Oh, my minions out there who are loading the planes. Ha, ha, ha. Look at them. Look where I'm at. He was one of them, even though he wasn't. Now, the crazy part of this is sort of the Donald Trump mystique. Even though Donald Trump has probably never gotten grease under his fingernails or gotten, brick mortar underneath his fingernails or had to, swing a hammer or, do any of that kind of stuff. He's got that reputation that he's the kind of guy that he shows up. Matter of fact, when he was running all his places in New York, there are all sorts of stories about him showing up at construction sites and, hey guys, thanks for doing all the good work, that kind of stuff. And a real sort of hands-on kind of guy. Whereas opposed to, do you really think that Barack Obama knew what was going on in the Defense Department? Do you really think Barack Obama knew what it was like to be a recruit, on the front lines,
Right, for sure. Of course not.
But once again, he's the commander-in-chief. Now, you can say that Joe Biden is on top of his game and he knows everything that's going on in every part of the government. Wouldn't you say that, John?
I would say he doesn't know what's happening with his bowels. I would say he's not sure. I don't think he knows about military movements or his personal movements.
Do you know?
I don't think he knows when either one happens.
But do you know what they do say about
what do they say?
Biden? They say
ancient Chinese secret.
Oh, that's what Hunter said. Have you seen the Afroman remix of Because I Got High?
No.
So Afroman's 2001 hit Because I Got High has been remixed by Afroman himself, Brad. He did an updated version called it's called Hunter Got High. And it's all about Hunter Biden. And Afroman in this video has a gentleman playing the role of Joe Biden, has a gentleman playing the role of Hunter Biden. I first saw this from our friend Stephanie Bell, smartened me up to this, and she asked me if I saw it, and I had seen it earlier that day on her Twitter, I think. But Brad, before tomorrow's show, you have to check it out. It's Afroman, Hunter Got High, and he talks a little bit about, Russia collusion. And the punchline of a lot of it is, China wasn't a problem, but Hunter got high. You know, like a lot of things have happened since Hunter got high, and they're quite a distraction from what's really going on.
I don't even know where to start from all of the things that have been said that are just wrong.
Hey, we're talking about Afroman. I did see the news story, but I didn't watch the video. So, man,
it's not the best rap song people have heard all week because that's still the Scott Fawn joint. But it's probably the second best rap song that people will hear all week, Brad.
Which is still one of our big hits on the bjshow.co YouTube channel, which once again is just exploding. If you watch our numbers, and when I'm saying this, and I actually said this to someone and they made fun of me because almost all of our categories that there's all, if you watch the analytics, if you're like real nerd, you watch the YouTube analytics, if you got a YouTube channel, all our analytics are either up double digits or in some cases triple digits. Have you seen that, by the way?
Yeah, it's good, and once again, it's a testament to our audience and folks who share it with other friends and friends and family and colleagues. Brad, it's a beautiful thing.
And I'm looking at the comments right now. Here's a comment that said, "That John guy's sharp, but Brad's a doofball. Where did you get him, John?" Here's another comment.
You know what? That was from Brad's psyche, and that's Brad's negative self-talk, which John often tries to work through on the show.
Here's another one. John's the sharp guy. Brad's the marble.
Boy, I hope I changed my login when I added those comments. I hope they don't show my real name on there, Brad. You know, I have a feeling tomorrow, Brad, that tomorrow is going to be a banger of a show. Maybe in segment C. I think we might talk about some song lyrics tomorrow in segment C, Brad.
What song lyrics are those?
I don't know. They could be from a famous Missouri politician, or they could be from a songstress who I think spent some time in Nashville. I think her name is Taylor. She goes busking around Nashville, you know, trying to get on the air.
Oh, what do you know about tomorrow at segment C? Do we have Taylor Burks on again?
It's not a Taylor, Brad, but it might be a singer whose favorite number is 13. Are you getting where I'm going here, Brad?
I'm not. Who are you talking about?
Last Wednesday, we set a traffic record with a segment called The Tortured Politicians Department.
Right. Oh, let's do
it again tomorrow,
Okay,
Brad.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, so you've got what John does is he asks me questions, which I get all wrong.
You did not. You batted 500 last week,
wow.
Brad, and that puts you in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, 500. I got half right, half wrong. You know, I could probably go down, if I was taking the old, test with the Scantron, I could go like A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, and probably still.
Give yourself some credit. And you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to give you a teaser, Brad. Tomorrow, because I respect your intelligence, tomorrow is going to be hard. And I heard, by the way, before we get out of here, number of texts last week, Brad, of folks who would listen to the show in the Capitol and pause it and in their office try to guess the answers and then hit play.
No way.
I love that. It's audience participation,
no
Brad.
way. That didn't happen.
It really did. I got multiple texts from friends and acquaintances that said they were doing that at the Capitol last week, Brad.
Man. Okay, we have to get out of here. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?